Rosie, and welcome back to my channel. There are so many different approaches to making bone broth out there that it can be overwhelming. Today, I'll show you my no-fuss, insanely easy way of making bone broth that's rich, nourishing, and so flavorful. After you see how easy this process is, you'll never want to buy bone broth or stock again. Let's get started. All you need are some bones and acid. Yes, it's that simple. I have 3-gallon freezer bags full of chicken bones that I've saved from rotisserie chicken or other chicken dishes over the last few months. I just try to freeze whatever bones I have left over, so there are probably some pork bones in there as well. If I'm due to make bone broth but don't have enough bones saved up, I'll add some chicken feet. But otherwise, it's basically free to make this with leftover bones that are normally thrown away. Lastly, I'm going to add about 1/3 cup of lemon juice. You could also use apple cider vinegar. This isn't enough for you to actually taste the lemon juice, but the acid is supposed to help draw out the minerals from the bones into the broth. That's it. I don't add any extra seasoning or aromatic vegetables to my bone broth. I keep it super simple so that it's more versatile. That way, I can season it however I like depending on how I end up using it. I let that come up to a rolling boil and then turn down the heat to a low simmer for the rest of the cooking time. Okay, so a lot of people advocate for cooking bone broth at least 48 hours to get out all the nutrients, but cooking it that long isn't practical for me. I don't have a slow cooker and I don't want to keep my gas stove running overnight unsupervised. So I just start the process as early as possible in the morning and cook it until bedtime the same day. That way, I get about 15 to 16 hours of cooking in. Based on how thick and flavorful my bone broth ends up being, that amount of cooking time is good enough for me. When the bone broth is done, you'll be able to easily crush the bones between your fingers. Right before bed, I turn off the stove and let the broth cool down overnight. I'm going to strain the broth the next morning. This is how I set everything up to make the process and cleanup super easy. I always have a few quarts of bone broth in my freezer to make soups, sauces, and gravies. It's the perfect ingredient for giving homemade food extra flavor and nutrition. Speaking of soup, if you want to see how this bone broth makes an incredibly creamy butternut squash soup without any dairy, keep on watching. I'm going to first roast the butternut squash at 400 degrees Fahrenheit with some olive oil, salt, and pepper until it's caramelized, about 25 to 30 minutes. In the meantime, I'm sautéing about a cup each of diced carrots, celery, and onion with some olive oil until they're soft. I remove those from the pan and bring 1 quart of the bone broth up to a boil. I puree the roasted butternut squash with the celery, carrots, and onions, and then add the mixture to the bone broth. Give it a good stir, and it is done. This soup is so silky, smooth, and extra rich from the bone broth. See how easy and simple it can be to make homemade bone broth? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more easy cooking and baking videos, and say hi in the comments. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye!